Sketchy Al. I dealt with various bullying when I was a kid, mostly from the boys. But the biggest one I had was a friend of me that was a girl. We actually started out as friends for a couple of weeks. I believe we met at school in 5th grade and found out she happened to live in the same neighborhood as I did, which was amazing because there was pretty much no full-time kids living where I was growing up. So I went to hang out at her house one day during our budding friendship. There I saw she had not 1, not 3, but 2 VHS tapes of the first gen of My Little Pony. Yeah, I'm not old. Moving on. I was super ecstatic to find out she was also a fan and was completely blown away that she chose to give the tapes to me. I probably watched those videos at least 15 times that day. I didn't have much of a movie library back then, so they were like gold to me as far as entertainment goes for the home. By the way, just a little first-gen fan rant here. One of the tapes was a pilot episode called Midnight Castle, which was really well done with the art, voice acting, and the plot actually held up. In my opinion anyways. The other tape, however, was a random episode about ponies losing their shadows, which that didn't age very well when looking back on it, along with the rest of the episodes in that series. But that's what was available at the time with the first gen of the show when I was a kid. I could go on, but I'll keep it brief. Anyways, rant over. So, the next day in school, however, she turned a complete 180 on me in attitude, and was making fun on how I was still into My Little Pony. I guess at that age, in 5th grade, girls were growing up and not supposed to be into cartoons like that anymore. Shrug noise. And so, she ended up being the biggest bully I ever dealt with. It was because of her I've built 10 tree forts in the Arroyo area where we happen to live by. For the record, I just happened to start building them first, and I guess she got jelly or bored and ended up actually copying me. Materials were scarce in the area, and so we went back and forth, tearing down each other's tree bases and building new ones at different locations, to which they really didn't last that very long. However, my final fort was one of the sweetest victories. Somehow, I knew her mom had a rule that she and her younger sister were not allowed to pass the cement drainage tunnel under the road. Since there was no rule in place for me, I decided one day to pass through it and ended up exploring pretty far, to which I happened to come across a junkyard. So out of the huge treasure trove of recycled goodies, I was able to build multi-story levels to my tree fort for the very first time. I used a shopping cart for storage and support for a second high-story spot in a nearby tree, with just a single large plank of wood. I also found a large silver loop for my first dog to jump through, and also a mini trampoline in great condition to use. Score! I was even able to build an emergency outhouse due to the distance from home, but luckily, I never had the need to use it. Phew! That very same tree fort lasted for years, since my bully and her sister couldn't pass the tunnel barrier. It's actually still there to this day, falling apart due to the passage of time. But the worst time I've ever dealt with her was actually on the bus. Back then, the power seat was located in the back. It was smaller than normal, so there was only enough room for one, and you get this sweet view of all the kids in front of ya. No worries of being watched from behind, or the awkward stress of sharing a seat with another kid. Plus, you even get to fly when the bus went over a speed bump. So that sweet spot came with many perks. Normally, she would get the seat before I ever could, but one day I was able to beat her to it, and she was pissed. At that point, she felt the seat was rightfully hers, but I wouldn't budge. She started to scream at me, and in her hot rage, she took my water bottle and dumped all of the liquid right over my head. I still didn't budge. Finally, the driver showed up and told her to sit down. She was actually crying the whole way home on how that seat was hers, which, by the way, there was no actual assigned seating back then. And she went on how it wasn't fair that I was getting away with it sitting in her spot. I couldn't believe how much of a huge temper tantrum she was throwing, like a 2-year-old. And she claimed I was the immature one for still liking My Little Pony cartoons at that point. Eye rolls. Hopefully she's cool now these days. We were just kids back then, after all. But thanks to her, I now have the record of building 10 tree forts during the summertime when growing up, to which I am grateful for now. Thank you for your time hearing out my childhood memories with a silly bully. If you'd like to watch more of my storytime vids, then please subscribe for more tales of the past from my end. Hope to catch you around next time. Ciao!